After discussing the different forces for the emergence of sociology, we now move on to the discussion of, let's say, emergence of sociology or the development of sociology in France. So that's the development of French sociology. So here we'll focus only on four thinkers. So we will not go into much details, but four thinkers would be de Tocqueville, Saint-Simon, Auguste Comte, Emile Durkheim. So the first of all, we look at Tocqueville. So his work is a product of enlightenment. So he was very much, let's say, looking into the effects of this enlightenment. He himself is never considered as a sociologist, but he did talk about the social theory, although many a times we see that social theory is not that prominent as many would expect. So he was basically considered as a political scientist. He traveled all around, went to states and studied the democracy over there, and he published, let's say, on democracy in different volumes. So therefore, we see that many have considered him as a political scientist, and primarily perhaps he was. Therefore, we see that the social theory is not that prominent. But nevertheless, we see that three interrelated issues are, I think, prominent in his theory. And amongst these three issues, the first one is the freedom. He was a great supporter of, as well as advocate of, freedom. Secondly, he was very critical of equality because it produces mediocrity. He probably considered that people who are well off, they are in a position to produce something like quality knowledge. He himself had a background of aristocracy, so he found that when we go for equality, now this equality I think brings down the high extreme as well as the low extreme towards the middle, and that's what he talked about, mediocrity. And thirdly, he talked about the growth of centralization. So centralization was something about running the government. If we are looking at the, let us say, democracy, now this democracy has to be run by certain institution. We call it as government. So government is the one who might be looking into the interests of the people. So the whole power, in his opinion, is centralized in the government. So mass of equalized people, there we don't see any checks on those who might be, let's say, coming up with radical kind of things. So no checks by, let's say, some other force on the democratic way of running the let's say, government. He also thought that equality, which was the hallmark of that particular period of hallmark of democracy, it leads to individualism. So there is equality, there is a freedom which ultimately threatened by its parallel commitment to equality, and there is, as I said earlier, a tendency to go towards centralized kind of government. So it leads to individual kind of interests. So maybe he was thinking that it will lead to individualism, and individualists, in his opinion, were never, I think, never advocated the let's say, welfare of the community. So, in his opinion, probably aristocrats could do it, but he was very critical of democracy and especially the socialism. So, in his opinion, maybe socialism is not advocated. So, for greater commitment to equality, greater likelihood of the centralized kind of government, therefore, it will not lead to the welfare of the people. So, individualism might be there, the capitalists might come, and the capitalists would be looking after their own interest, and there is no check on their, let's say, riches. That's how he was advocating that kind of socialism.